This next panel is on the changing nature of dual-use investing. That's the term used to describe a business model where a customer, or a company rather, sells to both commercial and government customers, in part because government customers are challenging to work with, and the startup needs revenue from the commercial startup to survive while the government works through all the bureaucracy. So joining us on this panel is Jyoti Hirani-Driver, Chief Operating Officer of the NATO Diana Fund, Matt O'Connell, Operating Partner at DCVC, Jack Wang, Managing Director, Project A Ventures UK. And this panel is moderated by a former TechCrunch colleague of mine, the Mike Butcher. Bring him a round of applause.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name's Mike Butcher. I'm a junior reporter on a small title called TechCrunch. No, I'm joking. I'm one of the editors. 22 million readers. I'm also the co-founder, quick advert, co-founder of TechVets, which is a charity that gets ex-military veterans into the technology industry. Go TechVets. So I've met lots of fantastic military people as a result of that. Our panel is on resilience, dual use. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all got introduced. So you know who everybody is. You've got the agenda. We're going to go straight in. I was going to say, actually, at the outset, that the brilliant definition of dual use would be fucking Pavel Durov and Telegram, which is, you know, what a great dual use technology that is. On one side, everybody's getting their drug deals on Telegram, and on the other side, it's deploying battlefield logistics for Russians against the Ukrainians. And by the way, Slava Ukraini, everybody. So, right, we've got some fantastic people, and I'm going to start with you, Jyoti. You are at Diana, with the interestingly named Diana, which is the NATO Innovation and Technology Accelerator. What are you guys doing about dual use? Go.
Great, thank you. So it's the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. So we've been specifically set up, we're a NATO body to find and accelerate dual-use technology. And why are we doing dual-use technology? I know it's a controversial term. Is any technology dual-use? It probably is. But from a defense perspective, this is a really positive thing, I think. We've got great technologies in the commercial sector, in particular in relation to critical infrastructure, which are applicable to the modern day warfighter who is data-driven. So logistics, supply chain, interoperability of data, getting the right information so you can take action quicker, faster, better. So that's what we're doing on dual use.
Do you find that you have to do lots of definitions of terms, or do people get it quickly, or and what's going on? How do you interact with, you know, the civilian side versus the defense sector?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of is that term understood, I think there are so many definitions of dual use. But in particular, I think it's, I'll just talk about the startup sector, the startups we're working on with this year. So some of them don't know if their technology is a dual use. Does it have applicability to military? Can it help the warfighter? And I think that's what we're trying to do, is really educate the startups on what dual use is and broker those introductions with the military and users and procurement agencies so that they don't find it hard to navigate. Because, and I'm not just talking as the crew of Diana, but as the Chief of Staff of Defense Innovation in the Ministry of Defense for 3 years, defense doesn't make it easy for startups. There isn't a front door. There isn't a clear person you need to talk to or can go to talk to about your innovation. And that's what we're trying to do with Diana.
And now turning to you, Jack, one of the big problems with investors is that, you know, we've had, you know, a long period of where defense was really completely out of fashion for the technology industry. You know, I knew engineers and startups and founders who'd be like, oh, we'd never work on defense. Oh, no. Oh, no. Goodness me. Horrible. It's something to do with war and weapons and God knows what else. And lots of VCs would like that as well. And even VC contracts with limited partners investing into funds. You know, no porn, no casinos and gambling, and no defense is in the contract. And that's a big problem, isn't it, for investors? So
Absolutely.
what's going on in 2024? How do we get over this problem? Is dual use is it the Trojan horse into the city of
It could
investors?
be less of a Trojan horse and more of a signal fire, if kind of makes sense.
Okay.
So Project A as a whole, just for a quick intro, we're one of the fundamental, you know, generic, vanilla, modeled, pan-European early-stage venture fund. Now, we're quite special in what we do because we were one of the early investors in quote-unquote dual-use tech, starting with Quantum Systems in 2022. And since then, we have made 2 more investments in this space. But we are sort of representative of what a normal European venture capital fund looks like day to day. To answer your original question, Mike, I think that is changing. So our initial 3 investments, which are Quantum Systems, Arx Robotics, and Lapis Technology, they're all dual use. They're all military facing. They all have commercial customers as well, enterprise, government, policing as well. And they're all live operating in Ukraine today, in the actual theaters of war, if you will, so to speak. They're not weapons. So by our current LPA, and I think most LPAs of European investment funds, VC funds, are co-investors, that's been okay. Now, keep in mind that venture capital funds have LPAs of 10 years, right? So most of the LPAs being signed that's live and operating today was signed before the Russian invasion, for lack of a better word. So that is something that is of a time factor to consider. When our conversations with the LP community as a whole, that has been changing systematically. The European Investment Fund now is closely working with something called a European Defense Facility, for example, to improve this. The NATO Innovation Fund has been a thought leader in the LP space as well, working on something like this. So it is definitely getting more pragmatic. I want to say the word is probably the right word, but it is a work in progress as well for the VC community together with the LP community.
I'd like to come back to you about where the bottlenecks might be, but Matt, if I can bring you in now, the pace of development and also things like procurement is difficult for the commercial sector. Perhaps you've developed some kind of commercial sector technology that could be deployed in a theater as well. What are your thoughts about that aspect?
In America, we refer to the Valley of Death when someone in the government says, I really, really, really want your stuff, but then I can't give you money for like a couple of years. I got started, I was a venture guy in New York. I found an early satellite company that took pictures and put it into bankruptcy. I took it away from the owner, put it into bankruptcy. That was right after 9/11. I could see the demand curve, so dollars flowed pretty quickly. It was a success of early companies like that. I mean, we were lucky, started with nothing and sold it for $1 billion. Well, then you get a lot of competition. It's harder for companies now. We have a company that has brilliant defensive drones. They're working in Ukraine. And this little company, Fordham, is getting no money from the U.S. government yet. Lots of promises, it's like a teenage boy, you know, I love you, I love you, I love you. But no money. And so we're actually getting money from NATO through various countries over here and helping defend Ukraine. I'm not sure that any of us be able to solve that problem because defense works with lives. You know, people's lives are at stake. National security is at stake. So accelerating the process is difficult. One thing that I think is absolutely one of the best things in the past couple decades, America created In-Q-Tel, that begat DIU, which begat AFWorks, which begat SoftWorks and SpaceWorks. You guys now have the NATO Innovation Fund and Diana. Those are wonderful tools for getting entrepreneurs into the government. I don't know if Trojan horse is the right thing. That sounds kind of negative.
I know.
I mean, it's
I just
maybe,
made it up.
But I think it's great that these things exist.
Yes, go, Jonathan.
Great,
Jyoti.
yeah.
And for you.
Yeah, thanks. Completely agree with you on this. I think this is why we need to have a bit of a community approach to dual use technology. So we need private capital really to help us scale those great technologies and accelerate them. Yes, there's definitely work government needs to do on procurement. If you just look at the procurement timescales, you know, for defense, a startup is potentially looking at one customer, one nation. We're talking about 18 months longer for procurement, and in the commercial sector, it's much quicker. So I think we need to take some learning and have a community approach to procurement.
Go.
Also, that has improved a little bit over the years. Over the last 2 years, actually, we work pretty closely with the German Armed Forces, given a headquarters in Germany as Project A. They regularly host sort of, for the lack of a better word, startup days, where you have all the right folks in the military in the room, in the field, actually. And then the startups will come. Some of the folks here have actually participated in that. And they'll come and display their gear. That's been happening, I think, especially since the Russian invasion, for sure.
Yeah.
Go.
I think you touched on something that's important. Minds are changing in America. I don't know how it is over here, but when I started my satellite company 20 plus years ago, the government wanted to own everything. I would say that most military want to own stuff. And I spend my life with the military. I drink with them. I watch football games, real football games, not your football games. They are getting used to the idea that they can license stuff or get services. I heard Paul say at a conference sponsored by In-Q-Tel that he thought software-enabled hardware would be a growing field. Well, I think that services will be a growing field. The government is now in America finally getting used to the fact that they don't have to own everything. A fellow at our NRO, I mean, I'll name names, said, you know, we just can't rely on the commercial world because we're not sure if you're going to be there. And I said, that makes perfect sense. You should actually put down that Apple laptop and put down your Apple phone and go back to building laptops as you did with UNIVAC, and don't be a hypocrite. So I think we are making progress. It's just slow.
What's the situation, especially Jyoti and Jack, with commercial, you know, civilian sector startups, tech companies with interesting solutions? Are they hammering down your door and going like, you know, what can we do? Can we, you know, deploy our logistics platform to move, you know, tanks around or whatever? Or are you going to them and saying like, listen, you've got something interesting, but we need maybe a more robust version of it, or whatever, or tweak the knobs. Go.
So we see the exact opposite pattern that we described, which is strange. So all those three sets of founders that we backed are all from military backgrounds. They came out of the military wanting to build something that is the next step in the private sector for the military. And while they were building this, commercial customers have knocked on the doors, hey, we would like to use that. Now, the sales cycles for the military is long. We all know that. That's not a secret. And then from a venture capital perspective, you fundraise every, 18 months maybe, 12 to 18 months, right? So traditionally in venture capital, the round KPIs you need for the next set of investors has mismatched the sales cycle for your military sales, which is also where commercial comes in from, right? So you start doing some commercial sales, you get traction, you progress the military pipeline, and hopefully by Series B, you have, you know, substantial amount of both. That is the dual use case dream.
How can we speed that up? How can we fix that?
To get military to buy faster.
Right.
That's all. Simple as that and as hard as that.
Okay. Jyoti.
I think in answer to your question, it's both. So what we're trying to do at Dynair is, you know, cast the net wide. So we're being really clear, or as clear as we can, what the challenge statements are. And what sort of technologies we're looking for, what startups might be doing in the civilian sector that might be applicable to the military, and then we're actually doing, going out to nations and startups and actually educating them that, you know, you might have a technology which is applicable to the military environment, and it's not all about offensive weapons and lethal and killing. So I think there is a good educational aspect which works both ways. One of our startups, Goldilocks, who've built a cyber kill switch. They have deployed with the Ukrainian Cyber Command, but also worked with UK water and energy utility companies. So I think that's a great example of educating both startups, but also defense and bringing in dual-use technology.
I think it was as we educate, I can remember my first meeting with the government 20 years ago when I took over this company. We went to them and they said, show us your drawings. And the team said, well, we can't because you haven't told us what you want. And the government said, that's not the way it goes. You give us drawings, our consultants critique them. They have the Aerospace Corporation, MITRE Corporation, and there was a halt, and they said, well, there's this new guy, and they pointed to me. I, at that point, didn't have clearances, but I was read into this one meeting. And I said, I understand their dilemma. It's kind of like the Spice Girls. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I said, how can they design something unless they know what the output is going to be? Otherwise, we waste hours and millions of dollars. So that is changing, but government people don't like to tell you what they want, what they really, really want. So
I think there's definitely opaqueness in the defense world, but I think we are starting to open up a bit more, and I think it goes back to that community and a bit of trust, actually.
This is definitely something that's really worth just touching on briefly is, you know, as I went to the Defense Tech Hackathon here at the Hack a couple of months ago, fantastic event. We got the guy who ran the military drone competition here last week. Fantastic. So things are really interestingly kind of moving on, and that sort of porous layer between the civilian world, the world of startups that I know intimately pretty well myself, and the whole defense world, and you can't photograph that person, and, you know, by the way, you know, go off into a small room and talk about this. You know, it's a whole different world, and how do we sort of make that, speed that up? Because technically speaking, in democratic societies, we ought to be able to use that as an advantage. You know, we're talking about adversaries in China and Russia, particularly also Iran, North Korea, who, you know, you say the wrong word, you're taking out the wrong word, you're taken out the back and shot. So, but in our world, we have to kind of work together, you know, and can we use that as an advantage? Can we use that to speed things up?
well, thank you for doing this conference. Seriously, I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm chairman of a small company that has radar satellites that can see at night and in bad weather. Putin, I can say this now, it's not classified anymore. Putin delayed the invasion by a week, maybe 9 days, because he saw clouds coming. He thought, oh, we'll go in under the cloud cover. I thought, don't you read space news? So just getting people together. It's very hard for my friends in the military to sit and talk with us. It's hard for my friends in the military to sit and talk with us in the commercial world. I'm part of a charity. I love your charity. There's a battle of the bands in the Intel community. And we get together with guys from the Intel community. All the bands compete. But it's just to get people together so that one side doesn't see the other as the enemy. I think things like this are very useful.
All right. Well, on the investor side, what sort of things do you hear from LPs or from other VCs about getting into the space, either it sort of overtly defense-related or dual use? What kinds of things do they talk about? What are their concerns? What would move the needle for them?
Yeah. So the space in terms of VC interest is definitely growing. So we published the European Defense Tech Investors List, basically on our newsletter. And we took a poll in March, and we had 30-something replies, 35 replies, I think. We took an update of the same thing in September, and we had 80. So the interest of VCs that are what I call defense curious is probably the right word. It's increasing, definitely, right? But then we also have the same LPA things that we're going to navigate through. We still, for a large part of the funds, and keep in mind that European venture capital money, as you know, Mike, comes from top down for the most part from European Investment Fund, anchoring all of us, not the same as America. Yeah, it's just a younger ecosystem, right? It's a good thing that they do that. It's better than not doing it. So because of that, we're still in this transitional period to catch up with what the real world need is. And it's definitely happening. It's happening fairly fast given the grand scale of things, right? So I think this is a positive trend for the ecosystem and European sovereignty in general.
Amongst the startups and the founders that you talk to, Jyoti, you know, some of the biggest things that we talk about in my world is things like artificial intelligence, for instance. We're not talking necessarily about hardware-related stuff. A lot of it's, you know, enterprise. It's very, you know, very sort of SaaS stuff. You know, are you able to get the message out there, the messaging? Like, for instance, obviously the NATO Investment Fund has you know, got some media coverage for, you know, the amount of money it had to deploy. Are you able to get your message out there? Are you getting a hearing out there in the, just for want of a better phrase, the civilian commercial sector?
Yeah, I think we definitely are, and I think that just shows by the number of applications we get year on year. So this year it was over, I think it was about 2,600, and that's from a good split of those who are in the commercial, who are developing technologies and are in the commercial sector and the defense sector. I think it is about making startups feel really comfortable engaging with defense. I think it is a scary world when you have a major general in his uniform. It's quite scary. How do you approach him? What do you say to him? Is he a decision maker? Does he have money? And these are the things we're helping startups navigate. And we're doing it through just bringing that ecosystem together. So industry, startups, government, all in the same room, networking, talking honestly.
Right. Matt, you see, you're in quite a good position because you see the European sector and you see the US sector. What are the kinds of differences, the bottlenecks, or the kind of, or things which could make things move more quickly over here versus the US, or vice versa? What sort of differences do you see?
I'm not
in
sure.
approaches?
I'm not sure either government has a patent on bottlenecks. I think they all have their own bottlenecks, and you just have to learn which is which. As I said, NATO has moved a lot faster on funding these defensive drones. America got on this radar satellite, Capella, very early. I think America, one of the earlier speakers said it's a different fundraising market in America. We have a lot more money. And so we are seeing a lot of European companies come over, and we welcome it. At this point, a lot of what I want to do is just help the network, help the DoD and the IC get up to network speed, which they're not. I think you guys are faster on environmental stuff, so we actually do more looking on environmental stuff here. We tend to look more for defense and intel work over there.
Right.
I was going to say, like, America spends double of what European spends combined on defense every year. So, and keep in mind that combined means we also have a very fragmented market, the same as any other tech startup would go to market here as well.
Well, interestingly, breaking news as of today, Deal Room issued a report which we ran on TechCrunch this morning, which found that defense investment has risen 5-fold in Europe since 2018. And the biggest, if I remember, the biggest countries investing are Germany, France, UK, obviously those the most obvious ones. And so it's clearly, you know, the needle is moving right now. And hopefully that can accelerate, especially if we want to keep our beloved democracies intact. Final words, we've got a couple of final words. What would you like to leave the audience with on the subject of dual use investing and startups? Go for it, Jyoti.
Yeah, thank you. So a message to any startup out there who's still wondering, is my technology applicable? Can I go to Diana? Yes, you can. Come and speak to us. There are a few Diana colleagues out here as well. I think to the investor community, we really do need you. We need you to be part of the community to solve defense and security challenges. So also come and speak to me, and we've got some exciting things happening in bringing that community together.
Right. Matt?
Dual use works as an investment thesis. I mean, I took a company from 0 to $1 billion. DCVC has done quite well. You have to get over the possible kinetic uses. Kinetic and kill both start with a K, so you can figure that out. But you can make money, and I think make the world a safer place. Would that we had a looming outbreak of peace. I don't see it. Keep hoping for it, but doing what we are doing, we hope that we leave our future generations safer.
If you're a founder trying to build or think about building in this space and you haven't sort of taken the leap yet, and you want to build whether it's a military first or a commercial first dual use case product, this has been the best environment to do that so far, historically. And now's the
Fantastic.
time.
And long may it rain. And ladies and gentlemen, from my perspective as a journalist on TechCrunch, trying to cover more defense tech, more dual-use tech, it's incredibly important. I have many colleagues and friends in Ukraine who are fighting the good fight. So if you have things you'd like to talk to me about on or off the record, I'll be around the rest of the day and the evening tonight at the speaker's dinner. I'd love to hear from you. I'm here to make contacts. I'm normally just a crazy tech journo running around tech conferences. So this world is very new to me over the last couple of years, but I'm here to make contacts. So that's my big advert. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for our panel.